You are listening to Radio Maria Canada. We now present the Health Hub, hosted by Kathy Biasi.
Welcome to the Health Hub on Radio Maria Canada, exploring cutting-edge health and wellness information and therapies, helping you to take your health to the next level. I am your host, Kathy Biasi, and I am a holistic nutritionist and a professional cancer coach. Approximately 1 million Canadians have a diagnosis of an eating disorder, and recovering from an eating disorder is different for everyone, but does involve overcoming mental, physical, and emotional barriers. Our guest today is Dr. David Wiss. Dr. Wiss became a registered dietitian nutritionist in 2013 and founded Nutrition in Recovery, a group practice of RDNs specializing in treating eating disorders as well as substance use. He earned his Ph.D. in public health with a minor in health psychology from UCLA by investigating links between adverse childhood experiences and mental health outcomes among socially disadvantaged men. Dr. Wiss's newest venture is his app called Wise Mind Nutrition. Wise Mind Nutrition delivers educational content using nutrition and lifestyle medicine to improve mental health outcomes. On this show, we talk about how adverse childhood experiences are linked to food disorders, why weight and body image are tied often to trauma, why nutrition is important for mental health recovery, and so many more things relevant to this topic. Do stay tuned with us. We will be back in just a few minutes to speak with Dr. Wiss.
You are listening to Radio Maria Canada. We now continue with the program, The Health Hub, hosted by Kathy Biasi.
Welcome back, everybody. As mentioned, today's show has been recorded, so no opportunity for calling in. Please do follow us on our social sites. We are on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, and we are at the Health Hub RMC on those locations. Dr. Wiss, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to a great conversation with you today.
Me too. This is not a topic that we've covered on the show. We've had over 300 shows, and you are the pioneer for our show in this topic of food addiction, food disorders. Really, really interesting, the connection that you make between actual nutrition protocols and disorders. So cannot wait to get into that. Tell us about yourself, how you got into this field, why you're passionate about it.
Yes, thank you. I'm from Los Angeles, and I grew up not clear about what I wanted to do. I think that's pretty normal. And during my undergraduate years, I was more of a counterculture kind of person. I was, my mother's was a hippie. So I found the rave culture in the late 90s and the early 2000s. And I kind of went off the path for a few years and found a return to health in 2006. And I just changed a lot. I changed a lot of people that I associated with, and I changed what I ate, and I started moving and getting sunlight and drinking water. And I personally had a profound alteration in my energy, and everyone noticed it. It was profound. I mean, my anxiety went away, my skin cleared up, and it was very clear that I had a calling to do some work in the health space. And I found that nutrition was profound for my own personal mental health journey. And I became very interested in the connection between nutrition and mental health. And I realized that it was kind of an untapped space. I ended up getting into a master's program to become a registered dietitian. And I did a master's thesis on nutrition and substance abuse. And I learned about eating behaviors associated with addictions, and I learned about eating disorders, and I started a clinical practice called Nutrition in Recovery, working with people one-on-one with disorders of eating and gut issues and behavioral issues that needed some very specific type of support. It wasn't just nutrition support, it was recovery support. So I'm passionate about both. And the business was very successful. And I trained a couple other dietitians to work alongside with me. And we started bringing our groups and our one-on-one to treatment centers here in Southern California. So I was, really one of the first voices to say nutrition needs to be talked about in mental health treatment, in addiction treatment. And this was right around the time when there was an explosion of research around gut health, which really started to make the case of why nutrition was important, starting to understand the mechanisms, and an explosion of research around food addiction, which caught my attention because I work with people in addiction recovery, and many people would report loss of control eating. And it was a controversial area and has even probably become even more controversial over the years. But I always thought it was an important conversation to have. And I wrote several papers about ultra-processed food addiction and really trying to educate the eating disorder community about the existence of reward-based eating and the role of dopamine and neurochemistry in the eating process. And I've also, been educating people in the food addiction space about eating disorders, which is, restrained eating, restrictive patterns, diet culture, weight stigma. So yeah, there's these polarized fields, and I'm the guy that's committed to bridging the gap and having conversations right here in the gray area at what I like to call the wise mind.
It's so many different things you're drawing on and trying to pull together. You talk about, one of the big things you talk about is trauma-informed nutrition. What exactly is that?
Thank you. Yeah, there's a lot of ways to approach that term, and it's gotten a lot of attention. Trauma-informed is sort of becoming the buzzword. Trauma-informed nutrition can be about acknowledging the role that trauma has in altering one's biology. So I did my Ph.D. at UCLA in public health with a minor in health psychology. My dissertation was on adverse childhood experiences and how they affect mental health. And a big part of my actual dissertation, the literature review, was a deep dive into all the different ways that trauma can affect biology. We call it the biological embedding of adversity. And so I think that to be trauma informed, one needs to understand how adversity can get under the skin and affect health. So for example, the immune system, increasing inflammatory markers in a real subtle way. People that have trauma have higher allostatic loads, changes in the brain to make someone more sensitive to rewards. So increasing the likelihood of addiction-like processes. And there's also, some other structural and functional changes in the brain. For example, with hippocampal volume, et cetera. We also have the HPA axis. We know that, the cortisol curves can start looking different for people that have been exposed to trauma. And there's more, there's epigenetics, there's the microbiome, we've got telomeres, there's like close to 10 different known pathways linking trauma to health. So I believe that to be trauma informed, one needs to understand some of these mechanisms. But I think when most people think about being trauma informed, it's more about being someone who makes a different set of assumptions. So instead of assuming that all health is a choice, we assume that people's health often reflects some of the barriers that they face emotionally, psychologically. And I think that nutrition has been very traumatizing for a lot of people. They've come to see well-intentioned professionals who might put them on a diet or make comments that are reminiscent of their early childhood, give them unrealistic things to do. And so trauma-informed nutrition is about safety, trust, building rapport, not making it about numbers, per se. That's a big part of the work that I do, is trying to move people toward a qualitative approach to nutrition rather than quantitative. And it really is about the therapeutic relationship. So when someone comes to see me and they get a sense that I understand what they've been through, I understand the biology, I understand the psychology, and we can talk about it in their social context in their lives, they feel safe. And it's no longer me taking the lead as the person with all the answers. I'm more co-creating a path with the person, right? As someone that's walking shoulder to shoulder with them and curious about their journey, rather than the expert that knows everything and calls them non-compliant when they don't do what I say, right?
Well, if we're trying to keep it with the aspects of trauma within the nutrition space, I mean, once we extend that, we could have a conversation for hours and still not get anywhere. But within the actual nutrition space, are you speaking of trauma that impacts people's perception of proper nutrition and body weight, or are you talking about a trauma and the way people are dealing with the trauma is through nutrition? To me, it seems like two very divergent pathways. Can they be treated the same way within your